Mr. Gerald Blatt was born July 15th, 1947, in a farmhouse in Normanville, Pennsylvania. His father was a carpenter while his mother worked at a local factory. He also grew up with his two sisters and one brother.
Please tell me what it was like growing up.
What I can remember, my dad had a large family, a lot of sisters and brothers, and they were very close. Every weekend we would be at their home or they'd be at ours. So I spent a lot of time playing with my cousins and enjoyed the simple life. We didn't do a whole lot. In the summertime we'd go swimming. Obviously in the wintertime we'd be sleigh riding. I remember playing a lot of ball, soccer and baseball, softball.
Um, did you play any sports?
I did not play sports in school because every night I went home and I helped my dad, and then as soon as I started driving, I worked in the local shoe factory until I graduated.
After graduating high school, Mr. Blatt knew he had 13 months left before going to serve in the Army. He worked as a building contractor, truck driver, and operated heavy equipment before going to serve in the military. All his friends were already drafted when he became a truck driver, so he knew his turn was next to serve. Mr. Blatt volunteered to go to the military after deciding he should get his military experience over with. If he volunteered to go to serve, it's only 2 years, which Mr. Blatt didn't know. He applied on a Tuesday, and that following Thursday he got his letter saying that he's going to the military, so they didn't fool around. Imagine finding out your son is going to join the military. Well, that was devastating for Mr. Blatt's family. However, his oldest sister was happy that he was leaving because she finally got him out of the house, while Mr. Blatt just wanted to get his military career over with and get his life back together. He knew there was the Vietnam War going on, but wasn't sure if he would be joining that. Six guys who graduated from Elko got drafted the same day as Mr. Blatt and ended up training together. Mr. Blatt couldn't be happier to know people getting into the military. Getting to basic training in Fort Hood, Texas took a lot of procedures that they needed to meet. They took a long route to get there. They took a train to Summer in South Carolina. Then commanders figured out what your best job would be according to your education and then went to Fort Hood, Texas.
Okay. Did you ever just wanted to leave?
Well, I wanted to get home as often as I could. I would have liked to, you want to take a leave as often as you can, but they keep you pretty busy. You get up early, and you you don't have a whole lot of time in the evening, so you write some letters. And that was the one thing I remember. Receiving mail was always, you couldn't wait. When those letters would come, if there wasn't a letter for you, it was a sad time.
Oh. Um, did you have any communications with anyone from home?
Yes, through the letters, that was the only way.
Earning the highest PT score at 600 men was something Mr. Blatt was capable of doing. Doing push-ups, running was easy for him since he was physically fit. Other men were struggling through the training, but Mr. Blatt managed to get past it. Everyone who was serving in the military had to get up at 5:30, wait in a long line for breakfast, and then do anything the leaders told them to do. Either it was march, learn to shoot rifles, or do more exercises.
Okay. If you did something wrong, was there a punishment during training? If yes, what was it?
I was, I gotta admit, I think I was a pretty straight shooter. I can't ever remember getting into trouble. There was one guy, you weren't allowed to have anything. You weren't allowed to have candy and things like that in basic training. And one evening, the one fellow's mother sent a box of candy. And I wasn't even participating. I was sitting on my bed, and this guy had his candy out, and he had shared it with a few other the guys. And our sergeant came in, and he went ballistic. He made all of us, I think, in that building, in that floor, there was like 45 or 50 guys. And he made us go outside and crawl on our hands and knees around the barracks 5 times. And that really turned me off. I didn't do a thing wrong, and we all had bloody knees and bloody hands. And I don't like to suffer for somebody else's mistakes.
Army is where Mr. Blatt went to serve and wouldn't change to a different branch if he could. If you choose another branch, it was 3 or 4 years and he just wanted to get it over with. He pointed out that he had 2 sergeants. One was an African American fellow, typically nice till he punished everyone for someone else's action, while the other sergeant was a little older and generally nice. Loved their food and survived their training easily. Every week, someone would win the position for having their bed tight. Answered questions right, good shape. This was a week thing. He won that position multiple times.
Okay, how was serving at Fort Hood, Texas?
I was serving.
Yeah.
Or did you like it there?
Yeah, the only drawback I think was it was farther from home, so it was hard to get home on a short like a weekend or 3-4 days. The only way home was to fly. If I would have been stationed in maybe New Jersey or something close to New York, after basic training, I could have come home on weekends possibly. So that was the only hindrance, was the distance.
Gerald Blatt remembers walking down a town called Colleen and going to the movies. His one job after basic training and advanced training was to teach incoming men how to drive tanks. He taught them mostly in the daytime. He would usually have off evenings and sometimes Sundays and Saturdays. If he wasn't relaxing, he was called in to do something. He still has one guy that he keeps in touch with still. Mr. Blatt met up with that guy after advanced training, and he recently just did an electric job for him. Everyone else, he lost contact with them and doesn't know how they're doing and what they're doing. Basic training ended, so they sent Mr. Blatt to Fort Sill, Oklahoma for advanced training, where he learned how to be a mechanic on the tanks and licensed him in 12 weeks. After that time came into an end, they sent him back into Fort Hood. He started to serve September 8, 1966, and then he knew he needed to get out September 8, 1968. He couldn't wait for that date to happen. It was an exciting time for him when he got out because he got a job. Mr. Blatt is glad he got his military days behind him and was glad to serve for his country. He learned how to be away from home and other valuable lessons. He thought he was a fairly good person going in, but doing service made him stronger and gave him foresight. Mr. Blatt still has a camel hair jacket that he bought at Vietnam. He wasn't allowed to bring anything except clothing home. His only hope was getting out of there alive and with all his body parts. He knew he could go to war and never come back home, and he knew some friends that didn't make it out.
What was your scariest moment you went through?
Probably when the Vietnamese, they had artillery weapons, and when they would shoot those things, our sirens would go off, and you had to run to your sand bunkers. And that's scary, because if you take a direct hit, there's hardly anything going to protect you. But we were fortunate. Their artillery weapons weren't very accurate. Ours, we could drop our bombs in a 5-gallon bucket a mile away. And I know one time we were on a convoy taking some supplies out to the field, and we were probably 20-25 trucks. And the Vietnamese would always plant bombs in the road, but the minesweepers would go through and clean them up and dig them out before 8 o'clock in the morning. But what happened, this one day, was a couple of trucks in front of me. The fella got off to the side of the road, and he hit one of them mines, blew to the front of the truck off, and blew his legs off. And they had to come in with a helicopter. I never heard if he survived or not, but it just makes you think that you're only seconds away from death.
Mr. Blatt dislikes when people on TV say that they're against the military. Mr. Blatt replies to them with, "Then get the uniform on and go to war, and see what you think." He encourages people who want to go serve in the military to go serve.